You know that feeling when you're craving some new music, but the usual ways like genre or artist just aren't quite cutting it.
Yeah, definitely. What if you could find songs based on, well, the actual stories, the emotions in the lyric?
Exactly. That's what we're digging into today. There's this really interesting research looking at how AI can understand song lyrics, the narrative, the feeling,
It's like a totally new way to unlock music, right? Moving beyond just the sound.
for sure. And our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack a project that really experimented with this, using AI to get to the core meaning.
Mm-hmm. And the research we looked at tried basically three main things. First, using an AI, they used Gemini to sort lyrics into categories that people defined beforehand.
Okay, human categories first.
Right. Then second, they sort of flipped the script and asked Gemini itself to come up with the categories to see what it thought the main themes were.
Oh, interesting.
And the third way involved something called clustering, grouping lyrics using these numerical representations embeddings based on how similar their meaning is.
So if you've ever felt stuck in a musical rut, you know, looking for something that really clicks but not sure where to start, this could be for you.
Absolutely. It's a shortcut to understanding some really cutting edge stuff that might change how we find music.
Okay, so let's dive into that first approach then. Classifying lyrics using predefined categories. What did that actually look like?
Well, it starts with humans deciding on the themes. In this project, they gave Gemini the lyrics and said, okay, put each song into one of these five buckets: love and relationships, social and political commentary,
Right.
introspection and mental states, fantasy and storytelling, and lifestyle environment.
So basically telling the AI, is this mostly about love or is it more social commentary? Makes sense. And what happened when they tried it with, you said, songs from 2023?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. The distribution across those categories, it was really, really uneven.
I so.
Something like around 50% of all the songs ended up in just one category. Love and relationships, probably.
Wow, okay. So not very balanced.
Not at all. And some of the other categories had, like, surprisingly few songs. It kind of shows that our initial ideas about themes might not capture everything that's actually in the lyrics.
Yeah, that immediately raises a bit of a red flag, doesn't it?
Yeah,
If half the music gets lumped into love, are we really getting the full picture?
exactly. It suggests those categories might have been maybe too broad in some ways, or maybe not specific enough in others.
So the success really depends on how clearly those categories are defined and how you ask the AI.
Precisely. It hinges on the clarity of those human-defined themes and, yeah, the exact wording of the prompt you give the AI. Get it slightly wrong, and the results might not be super helpful for finding genuinely new kinds of music.
Okay, so that's the challenge with starting with our own assumptions,
Mm.
which brings us to method number two. You call it flipping the script, letting the AI define the categories. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is where they let Gemini take the lead. Instead of giving it a list, they basically said, analyze these lyrics and you tell us what the main five categories should be.
Okay, so the AI does the sorting and the defining.
Sort of. The goal was to see if the AI could identify categories with less thematic overlap, ones that were more distinct based on what was actually in the songs.
How do they guide it? Did they just say find five themes?
The prompt was a bit more specific. It encouraged Gemini to look at the overall sentiment, the feeling of the lyrics, and crucially, to try and make the categories as distinct as separate as possible. Minimize the redundancy.
Right. And what did Gemini come up with? I'm curious what an AI thinks the main themes are.
It came up with these five: romantic love and devotion,
Okay.
heartbreak and loss, toxic relationships and destructive behavior.
Ooh, getting specific there.
Yeah. Then personal reflection and self-awareness, and finally, celebration, empowerment, and social commentary.
That does feel a bit more nuanced, maybe more emotionally granular than the first set.
It seems that way, and for each one they also got brief descriptions of what fits and what doesn't to clarify the AI's thinking.
And the distribution. Were the songs spread out more evenly across these AI categories?
Yes, noticeably so. It was much more homogeneous compared to the human-defined ones. The songs weren't all clustered in one or two buckets.
Hmm. So maybe the AI, without our biases, picked up on more distinct patterns.
That's what it suggests, yeah. A more balanced reflection of the actual lyrical content in their data set, at least.
Okay, that's fascinating. So, human categories, AI categories, now the third one. Clustering, using embeddings, and k-means. Sounds a bit more technical.
It is, yeah, but it's a really powerful approach. Let's break it down. First, embeddings. Think of them as like numerical fingerprints for meaning.
Fingerprints for meaning. Okay.
Yeah, Gemini reads the lyrics and translates the meaning, the themes, the sentiment into a list of numbers. That's the embedding. Songs with similar meanings will have mathematically similar lists of numbers.
Got it. So each song gets a numerical code based on its lyrical content.
Um,
What's K-means?
K-means is a pretty standard machine learning algorithm for grouping things. You give it all those numerical fingerprints, the embeddings, and you tell it how many groups or clusters you want.
And they chose 5 again for comparison.
Exactly. They wanted 5 clusters to compare apples to apples with the other methods. K-means then iteratively shuffles the songs around, trying to put songs with similar fingerprints together into those 5 groups. It keeps adjusting until the groups are as tight and distinct as possible, mathematically.
So it's grouping based purely on the numerical similarity of the meaning, as captured by the embeddings.
Precisely. And once it had the 5 clusters, they used another AI, a language model, to look at the songs in each cluster and generate a title and summary to help us humans understand what theme tied each cluster together.
Ah, that's smart. Using AI to interpret the AI's clusters. What kind of clusters did that method find?
They were pretty evocative. One was called Crossroads of Life, mainly songs about being broke, financial struggles.
Okay.
Another was Heartbreak, Regret, and the Lingering G. You can guess what that's about. Post-relationship turmoil, then love, lust, and life. A tapestry of H, which seemed broader, covering various romantic and life experiences. Boastful anthems of wealth, power, and
Wow.
pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, the bragging tracks.
Exactly. And the last one was a collection of confessions, Love, Low, which sounded more like personal, maybe vulnerable narratives.
Those definitely capture some distinct vibes.
Yeah.
But the source said these clusters might be less intuitively human understandable at first. What's that about?
It just means that because the grouping is based purely on those numerical embeddings, the connections within a cluster might not always be immediately obvious to us. Like why this specific song is grouped with that one might require looking deeper than just keywords.
Okay. The AI sees connections we might miss initially.
Right. But as they showed, you can use another AI to help translate that. The big plus here is scalability. This embedding and clustering approach can handle huge amounts of music without needing humans to define categories up front.
Makes sense. Okay, 3 different methods, 3 different sets of results. How did they figure out which one was, better? How do you evaluate this stuff?
Good question. They used a couple of methods. One was a statistical measure called the silhouette score.
Syllabus score.
Yeah, it basically measures how well defined the clusters or categories are. It looks at how similar a song is to others in its own group versus songs in other groups. The score goes from Menical 1 to 1, and higher is better. It means the groups are more distinct and internally consistent.
Okay, so higher score means tighter, more meaningful groups.
Exactly. And based on that score, the third approach, the embeddings with k-means, actually performed the best. It created the most mathematically distinct clusters.
Interesting. So the numbers say clustering wins on definition. What else did they look at?
They also did what they called an AI on AI evaluation. They basically asked another language model to judge how semantically consistent and meaningful the categories from each method were. Like how well did the themes hang together?
So one AI judging the work of another AI, or the humans.
Yeah. Pretty much. And in that evaluation, the second approach, where Gemini defined its own categories, seemed to come out on top. That model judged those AI-generated categories as being the most coherent and distinct in terms of meaning.
Huh. So different evaluation methods favor different approaches. K-means is mathematically tightest, but the AI-defined ones might be more semantically coherent, at least according to another AI.
It seems that way. It highlights that there are different ways to think about what makes a good categorization.
The source also mentions something about results varying slightly because of the AI.
Yeah, that's important. Large language models like Gemini have a bit of inherent randomness. So if you run the same analysis again, you might get slightly different wording or maybe even minor variations in classification. It's just part of how they work currently.
Right. It's not like a simple calculation that's always identical. Good to keep in mind. So, okay, beyond just sorting songs into piles, this research mentions something really cool. Semantic search. For someone like me, what does that mean practically?
Oh, this is potentially huge for discovery. Because those embeddings capture meaning, you can search based on concepts, not just keywords.
How so?
Well, imagine you search for songs about friendship. A normal search looks for the word friendship. Semantic search, using embeddings, could find songs that feel like friendship, that talk about loyalty, camaraderie, being there for someone,
Bro.
even if they never use the actual word friend.
Whoa. So it understands the idea behind my search.
Exactly. Or say you want songs about, I don't know, overcoming a struggle. You could search for that feeling, that theme of resilience, and it could find songs that capture that emotional journey, regardless of the specific words used.
That is incredible. I've definitely searched for songs about a specific feeling, like feeling a bit lost, and just typing keywords doesn't always get you there. This sounds like it could actually find those songs.
That's the promise. It moves beyond literal word matching to understanding the underlying semantics, the nuances of emotion and theme. A real game changer for finding music that resonates on a deeper level.
It really feels like it. Okay, this has been super insightful. If we were to boil it down, what are the main takeaways from this deep dive for listeners?
Well, I think the big one is that AI offers some genuinely new and powerful ways to understand music through its lyrics. All three methods, human-defined, AI-defined, and clustering, have potential.
Right, they each bring something different to the table.
Yeah. Embeddings and clustering look really promising for handling massive scale, even if the clusters need a bit of interpretation.
Well, the human-defined ones are maybe easier to grasp initially, but risk being unbalanced or missing nuances.
Exactly. And the AI-defined categories offer that interesting middle ground, potentially more balanced and nuanced than the human ones, though maybe not as scalable as pure clustering for, millions and millions of songs.
That the overarching theme is moving beyond just genre or artist,
Right.
getting to the meaning.
Absolutely. It's about unlocking discovery based on the stories and emotions in the music, which is pretty exciting.
Do the research point towards next steps? Like, where does this go from here?
Yeah, they had a few ideas. Comparing these methods to even more NLP techniques like TF-IDF or atomic modeling, exploring different types of clustering like hierarchical clustering.
Okay.
And one I thought was really cool, tracking how the content of these thematic clusters changes over time. Imagine seeing how the lyrical themes of, say, popular love songs shifted from the 70s to the 90s to today.
Wow, that would be fascinating. Like mapping cultural shifts through lyrics. That's brilliant.
Isn't it? It opens up whole new ways to study music history, too.
The source also mentioned an app, Song to Run. How does that fit in?
Yeah. That was mentioned as a real-world example of AI already being used in music discovery. It helps find running music based on tempo, energy, that sort of thing.
So it uses AI, but not yet this deep lyrical analysis we've been talking about.
Exactly. It shows AI is already part of the music discovery landscape, and this lyrical meaning analysis could be the next evolution.
And for listeners who are maybe a bit techie or just really curious, there was something about a Kaggle notebook.
Yes. For anyone who wants to play around with this themselves, the researchers made their code and data available on Kaggle. You can actually run these analyses, experiment with it.
That's great. A chance to get hands-on.
Definitely a cool resource if you're into that.
This whole deep dive really opens your eyes, or ears, I guess, to how AI could fundamentally change our relationship with music discovery. It's not just about the beat anymore.
It's about connecting with the substance, the meaning, the human experience captured in the lyrics.
Yeah. And thinking about that, how could understanding this emotional and thematic map of music change things for you, the listener? Not just finding songs, but maybe connecting differently with them, or even with other people who resonate with the same lyrical themes.
What themes are you drawn to? What kind of meaning do you look for in music?
It makes you wonder what hidden gems are out there. Just waiting for the right kind of search, a search based on feeling, not just keywords. It's definitely something to think about next time you're looking for that perfect track.